All right. Here we are looking at US23. I know you're looking at JT over here. He's going to be watching you guys. Don't be like a baby sucking on a bottle. We're going to be doing a little bit better than that, I hope. All right. Here's US23. We'll be looking at what's called the Warren Court. And you'll see that it is the name of the Supreme Court that's going to issue some landmark decisions like Brown versus Board of Education. Your Miranda rights come from this. We'll talk about that. It'll be good. And this is, again, your Miranda rights. We'll talk about where they come from. Some of you may have heard of these. Some of you have not. I hope none of you have. All right, here's a story. We'll talk about that. Here's Ernesto Miranda. This is the guy you can thank for your Miranda rights. All right, here is Brown versus Board of Education, overturning Plessy versus Ferguson again. Check them out. Do they like each other? All right, we'll see what happens in 63 with John F. Kennedy getting shot. Or ask me, I'll show you the video of it. Here's LBJ, or Lyndon B. Johnson, taking the presidency after John F. Kennedy is shot in 63. And then we have a speech by Johnson, LBJ, in 64, showing his vision for America, which is called the Great Society. It's where we get Medicare from. And then some of you will be thankful Medicare is there because it'll help you when you get older. All right, and then there's the Tet Offensive again, bringing our soldiers home with the Anti-Vietnam War Amendment. Then the big year, 1968, two big things happen and other things is going to be, that's right, the assassination of Martin Luther King. We'll look at that. The assassination of Robert Kennedy. He's not a president, but he should have been at the time. And we're going to see the Democratic National Convention of 1968. This is crazy. Is America going to survive? That's what basically was happening there. All right, there's your introduction. Get your pens ready. Let's do this. All right, here we go. Here we go. We're going to talk about first, what was the impact of political developments between it's that year after World War II, 45 and 1968, which is the big year, 1968. That's when we actually go to the moon, yeah. All right, this standard will measure your understanding of how in the late 1940s and then 1950s and 1960s, political actions and decisions resolved thorny issues that Americans had faced for many decades. Individual rights, civil rights, and social welfare were addressed by Americans, sometimes within the institutions of the U.S. government and sometimes by private citizens. All right, our first topic is individual rights. Individual rights. All right, during most of the 1950s and 60s, all right, the U.S. Supreme Court was headed by Chief Justice Earl Warren. That's why they call it the Warren Court. All right, the Warren Court, as it was known, became famous for issuing landmark decisions such as declaring that segregation in public schools was unconstitutional in the court case, which you already know, Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. That the Constitution includes the right to privacy, that the right of free speech protects students who wear armbands as an anti-war protest on school grounds, and that all states must obey all decisions of the Supreme Court. That gives them a lot of power. And then in what year are we looking at? 1963, the Warren Court issued another of its landmark decisions, which will be where we get Miranda rights. We call this court case the Miranda versus, and guess the state, where was he? Was he in Alabama, Georgia? It's an A state. He was at Miranda versus Arizona. That's right, Arizona. I can't spell. All right. Police, and this is what happens. Police must What must they do because of Miranda rights? Must inform suspects, not criminals, but anybody they might think be a criminal, of their constitutional rights at the time of arrest. The case involved a man named Ernesto Miranda, who was convicted and imprisoned after signing a confession, although at the time of his arrest, the police questioned him without telling him he had the right to speak with an attorney and the right to stay silent. The Miranda decision, as it became known, strengthened Americans' individual rights. Very good. There's your Miranda rights with Miranda versus Arizona. All right, our next topic should be a name of a movie. If you call it Murder in Dallas. Murder in Dallas. Oh, all right. The assassination of President, I'm going to just write it out here like this, JFK. President John F. Kennedy. Where was he? Dallas, Texas. In November of 1963, you should all know that by now, was a tragic event with a twofold political impact. So here's basically the the results of the assassination. Let's see. The assassination first showed Americans just how strong their government was. Because although the president, our leader, would be killed, be assassinated, the United States government just kept on ticking. The government could live on. It's amazing. The Constitution did a good job. The assassination gave the new president, his name is Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson. He was called LBJ a lot. All right, so the assassination gave the new president, Lyndon B. Johnson, the political capital to force his domestic legislative package through Congress. So Johnson's going to do his thing now. This included the Economic Opportunity Act of what year did he do this? 1964, which launched Johnson's War on Poverty. We've been trying to fight poverty since the early 60s. And the Civil Rights Act of 1960. Which one is this? There's a bunch of those Civil Rights Act. This will be the one of 1964. All right, that's the one we need to know for standards, which basically supports Brown versus Board of Education, and then basically outlawed segregation, or re-outlawed, I should say, segregation in American schools and other public places. All right, there's our first big instance in 1968, the murder in Dallas. All right, the next thing you have to know is what Lyndon B. Johnson's big plan was. It was called the Great Society. That's right, the Great Society. And basically, this is what it's all about. During the 1964 speech, President Johnson, or LBJ, summed up his vision for America in the phrase, he called us it's the title there, the Great Society. That's right. His programs to make the United States a great society would give all Americans a better standard of living and greater opportunities regardless of their background. The Medicare program is an important legacy of the Great Society, and really the only thing that's left over it, as are policies and programs that sought to improve elementary and secondary education. All right, he also tried to protect the environment and reform immigration policies. All right, so the big things you need to know out of the Great Society is that was Johnson's idea, and Medicare came out of it, which is aid for those, or medical care for those over 65 years old. All right, here we go. Our next one, the big year, 1968. I need to make this big for you guys. 1968. A lot of things happen here. You got to know it. We'll take them one at a time. Here we go. The big year. The year is 1968. Was one of social and political turmoil in the United States. Review the list of key events that shocked America and made 1968 a defining moment of modern eras. All right, here we go. First one is January. All right, 1968. Viet Cong fighters launched you've already learned about it. What was that battle? You already know about the Vietnam War. Tet Offensive. They launched the Tet Offensive during again, I already said, the Vietnam War, attacking over 100 South Vietnamese towns, 12 American air bases, and the U.S. Embassy and was it be North or South? In South Vietnam. That's who we're fighting for. Many Americans turned against the war and against Johnson's administration, which had claimed that the enemy was near defeat. In Forrest Gump, Johnson's been called a liar. That's right. First thing in 1960. All right, next thing. Now we're at April 1968. The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. That's right. Caused riots in over 100 cities across America. Despite the pleas for please calm down from such prominent leaders as Senator, who will be trying to calm everybody down, Senator Robert Kennedy. That's right. He's good friends with Martin Luther King, who was at that time running for president. All right. 1 week after King's death, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1968 that prevented the discrimination in housing toward minorities. There you go. All right. We're 1968. It's June now. We'll have another assassination and that's who we just saw, the good friend of Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy. Senator Robert Kennedy, about to run for president, following soon after King's assassination, disheartened many people who shared Kennedy's desires for social reform and opposition to the Vietnam War. That's right. He was running for president when killed on the same night he won the California and South Dakota presidential primaries. That's right. Robert Kennedy also assassinated in 1968. All right, last big event you have to know in August of 1968 will be what happens at the Democratic National Convention. This is where everybody meets. The Democrats will meet and decide who's going to be their person they're going to run for president. All right, it's in Chicago. It's remembered as a scene where police armed with clubs, this is crazy, and tear gas violently beat anti-Vietnam War protesters on live TV. You can see it on YouTube. Many Americans started wondering if the American form of government could tolerate this dissent and this craziness that's been going on in the world. All right, so let's do this backwards. Here we go. There is the Democratic National Convention. That's right, and we'll show you that in a minute. There's Robert Kennedy after he's been shot. Here he is. Martin Luther King, assassinated right here. There's a person that did it. And look, here's the pictures. Martin Luther King, he's laid on the ground. He was shot by somebody somewhere over here. All right, 1968, that big year. There's four things you got to know. The Viet Cong, that Tet Offensive. Robert Kennedy's being assassinated. Martin Luther King's being assassinated. And that crazy Democratic National Convention. All right. The swearing in of LBJ after John F. Kennedy in '63 was assassinated. That's right. And then you get your Miranda rights. There's Ernesto Miranda. And that's it, guys. Oh, the Warren Court oversaw almost all of this, all these major things there. There is US23, guys. All right. Thank you for paying attention. Oh, don't forget the Medicare and Great Society that came from LBJ. and let's have some fun. Over and out.